Hi everyone, welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave and Meki, broadcasting live from the Sydney studios in Australia. Jump into the chat room at freedomslips.com and discuss with us the topics that get you thinking. You know what? You can do that while we're on air. It's awesome. And you can talk to us while we're on air via the same chat room. But you can also follow us on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. You can also check out shinysideout.net for our show archives, notes, and links we paste into the chat during the show. It's so easy to listen to Revolution Radio. If you live in Kentucky, tune in on FM WZZR 101.3, or you can get an app on your smart device, Revolution Radio app, TalkStream Live app, TuneIn.com app, Radio Tuner, or you can get the one that we made ourselves called Shiny Side Out. It's pretty cool. At home, if you don't like any of that stuff, you can buy a Grace tabletop digital radio, or if you're lucky enough to have a General Motors vehicle with a receiver-enabled radio, you can listen to us anywhere. I love that. I just like the apps because the apps are so cool. You could be on the ISS and you can be listening to us right now. I just love that. Woohoo! All right, each one of those things are revolutions in radio. I kid you not. They never used to be around, so there must be a revolution, hence Revolution Radio. You can buy, and I like this bit, you can buy a CD of your favourite host for the 2014 season. Each CD costs $30. $30. Oh, hang on. I've got a tinfoil hat on. I really do. But you know what? Don't just get don't just get that CD. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. I went there this morning and I actually purchased it myself, and that is the best 12 interviews from Revolution Radio last year in 2014. The people on that are Courtney Brown, Richard Dolan, Stanton Friedman, Brian Forrester, Benjamin Fulford, Cliff High, Richard Hoagland, David Icke. David Icke is on that double CD. Jordan Maxwell, Robert Schuch, Jesse Ventura, and Alfred Weber. Guess what? I bought it because I can't wait to hear. Was it our interview with Stanton Friedman or Brian Foster? Or was it a Mad Painters interview with Stanton Friedman? I would love to be represented on that double CD. I can't wait to receive it. And that was only $15, I think. But because I'm in Australia, there's a bit of, shipping. But I don't care. I'm supporting the station, and that's what it's all about. You can buy seed packs. You can do a whole bunch of stuff. You can get, USB thumb drives, whatever it is. Get yourself one of those. It supports the station. And, it doesn't really matter, does it? You've bought something. Yeah. Someone in the chat room just realised I got a tinfoil hat on. Yeah, I did that because remember, this here, a whole show is a tinfoil hat zone. It's shiny side out. You got to wear it shiny side out, not the dull side. That's the dull side. That's the shiny side. Got to wear it shiny side out, or you're doing it wrong. Anyway, I want to be able to think to you guys, so I'm going to take it off. I don't need any protection. Now, Meki is overseas at the moment, and he's having all sorts of issues trying to connect. The last time he was overseas, he was having a lot of problems. He was in a conference room trying to get Wi-Fi. They gave him Wi-Fi. Their Wi-Fi was terrible. They wouldn't let him call in or use the Wi-Fi. It was just terrible. So goodness me, I hope honestly that he can join in. But I'm going to say, and I listened to the whole show today. I was lucky enough to be home doing some work. That's why I got my t-shirt on. The Solaris Blue Raven show, awesome. Once again, I have to tell you, awesome. You know what? If you're listening to this archive, you've got to go and find the one for Solaris's show, because today she had on her show Mary Rodwell. We've interviewed her before. She's great. I love it. I can't say I love her because I haven't met her in person. I love what she represents. I love her her research. I love all the things she has to say. She does it very well. She's eloquent, and she's got research to back up what she does. All right, so I have to just tell you, she's really nice, and a great interview too, and well done, Solaris. And she actually asked some questions that I texted through. Oh, hang on, the show is all mine. Yeah, apparently it is. Oh. Anyway, well, we'll see if Meki can get on board or not. So, yeah, once again, check out Solaris' shows in the archives. I've got some news. I wanted to show something, and I was really worried about what I saw. Now, I'm going to flick to a shared screen here. I've got a number of screens all around me. Oh, gave away the blue screen. Oh, there's my hand. And I'm going to flick it across to this. Okay, now, one of the things, this is the news story. Now, one of the things that came up this week was the Ukrainian nuke. I'm going to play this video twice. Okay, so I'm just going to play it once the first time. I think I don't know if you're going to see it or hear it, but I'll narrate it anyway. If you're listening on the radio, certainly the audio from it goes to the YouTube channel. So I apologize if you can't hear it on the radio, and there's not very much to hear really, just explosions and talking. But it is in Ukrainian, and I apologize if there's any profanities in a foreign language in advance, because I'm not Ukrainian, I don't speak Ukrainian. So here we go. Firstly, then I'll also, what I'll do for you, for those people who are in the chat room and listening, I'm pasting the video I'm about to display. So there's the link. My name's Narara in the chat room at freedomslips.com. Jump in there. You can be any name you like. It doesn't have to be your real name. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop in, I'm going to play this video and see what the surprise is. Now, I've labeled the video, if you're searching for it and you want to know what it is, it's Ukraine nuke versus the 1953 280mm artillery nuke. You decide. Because I've made a decision, I want you to do the same thing. Okay, so there's a huge pressure wave, very bright, and then what looks like a mushroom cloud, fiery mushroom cloud, going up to the cloud. Alright, and now I'm witnessing the artillery cannon from 1953 firing a nuclear weapon, and it goes off some 2 or 3 miles downrange, and it looks exactly the same. It's exactly the same. I'll play it again, just for those people on YouTube, clearly. So the people are shocked to see it. You can hear them talking, and you can hear a couple of shots, and then you hear it explode. And in the other, there's a few video clips of them, and one of them it even breaks the glass. A shockwave from 2 miles away breaks the glass. Now that's a big explosion. But what's to be said about the explosion, to be honest? I mean, thinking about what it is, looks like any other explosion. Well, not really. I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to say, because I've looked at this a number of times, right? So that's the screen I'm looking at. It was reported to be a chemical factory, some explosion. Doesn't look like that to me. Chemical factory safety protocols suggest that everything should be separated, that no intercontamination can occur between silos. They all have drainage pits, everything. So if you happen to shoot one, unless it reacted with oxygen, which would be extremely ridiculous, but if they did have something like that, I'm sure there'd be more containment. But they said that was just an accidental shot. Someone shot something and it blew up. It doesn't look like a chemical fire. It doesn't look like... I would have to say, for something to be that big, the two chemicals that mix together would have to have mixed together so quickly as to form that reaction. So I'm arguing against the fact that it's a chemical accident. It doesn't look like it. Chemical accidents usually, encompass there being some huge gas cloud that drifts across the landscape, killing people. Yeah, we all know about those ones. If it was gas, if they'd said it was a petroleum warehouse or something like that, liquid LPG, I'd believe that. That would be so much better than, it was a chemical factory and it was just some accident. But, all right. I want everyone's tinfoil hats on because guess what? That's so unlikely that it was a chemical factory because, now this is it. You ready? Link the two events together. What happened this week? In Russia, they suggested that, we're going to have a ceasefire. Oh, wait. How soon was that after this hideous explosion? And why would they bend so readily towards a ceasefire? It doesn't make any sense. Honestly, it doesn't. Unless it was a nuke. What ended World War II? Nukes. Why did the Japanese surrender so quickly after the second one? The first one, the news hadn't even gotten to them yet, so they dropped it. You guys, Americans, dropped another one on Nagasaki, and that tended to do the trick. And they surrendered. Now, I'm really thinking right now that they used a nuke. A small nuke, a tactical nuke, just like that one from 1953. That's 60 years ago. 67 years ago, they did that. Imagine what they have today. Just imagine that. So anyway, that's what I think it is, and I'd like some, I'm happy to take a caller if you want to talk me down from thinking it was a nuke, or you want to agree with me. I'm happy to take a caller. So if you're in the US, you can call in on 347-688-2902. How's that? Straight off the top of the head. Or you can just add Freedom Screen, or message me in the chat room. I'm happy to take a couple of messages. Either way, it doesn't really matter. This is a fun show, and it looks like I'm freeballing for a while. I don't think Meki is going to be with us, sadly. I mean, he's fretting, trying to get the thing up and running, and I can't see him online. Poor thing. So, let me try. I did something really cool. I sent our station owner one of our mugs. This is one of my mugs here. Check it out. It says SSO. I'm going to try not get any flaring on it. Okay. Here we go. So it says freedomsips.com, and then it's got Shiny Side Out, and it's got Revolution Radio with Dave and Meki on shinysideout.net. So it's got everything. It's dual branded because I love the station. We love the station. Unfortunately, it's 20 ounces, and that's a lot of coffee. If you're a coffee fan like me, don't go back to too many refills because, oh, boy, you don't want that. All right, so I'm going to, in the absence of Meki, I'm going to pull in Solaris if she's willing to be part of this. She might be asleep or trying to sleep, or trying to, maybe, getting something. She's just been on the air for 2 hours. I mean, it's pretty tough ask to get her on. I don't know if Jerry B's around. Jerry B sometimes might want to join and have a little round table or something. At the moment, because the show notes, Meki was doing an edit and they haven't come through, so that's not fair. Anyway, Solaris is going to join us, and she seems happy enough to assist. Solaris, welcome to Shiny Side Out.
Well, hi, David. How are you?
Oh boy, it's it must be. We might be able to get some other people online. It's stinking hot. It's not like terrible hot. It's just that the humidity. I mean, it should be raining. I swear it's raining on you. There's no visible rain, but you're covered. You're soaking wet from the perspiration. and
Oh,
it's unbearable. You can't do anything if you walk anywhere. You just your skin's
you need to
glisten.
go to the beach.
Yeah, well, actually, the water is I think 28 degrees or something ridiculous. It's crazy.
Hmm. Wow.
Um, it's the warmest it's been, and we something really odd about that. And normally, if the water temperature is like 32 degrees, you can get hurricanes or cyclones or wherever you are on the world. But we haven't seen one this season yet,
Mm-hmm.
and we think a lot of harp's going on.
Possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, awesome show with Mary, wasn't it? Well
Oh,
done.
thank you. Yeah, I love Mary. She's awesome. Yeah,
Hmm.
she's great. Thank
And
you.
thank you very much for asking those questions for me, for putting it
Oh, my
forward.
pleasure. Yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating when you think about these evolved beings out
Hmm.
there, all these star children. And I know you have one, at least
Yeah,
one or two.
too. Hey,
Yeah.
did you hear what Russia was? There's a lot of talk on Facebook, whether it's just thanks, Simply Red. Um, sorry, I respond with audio to the people in the chat room. I saw some Facebook social media press about Putin wanting to push disclosure out there, and
Hmm.
that by and I think that threat is based around belittling the US because of their reluctance to do it. And
Hmm.
if and Russia wants to be the next world power and is trying really hard, but I would only ever succeed in partnership with China. So by doing this, it might step them up, give them some cred.
Right?
Yeah. So at the moment, we're seeing a lot of that. Oh, hang on, let me add to group call. Um, so yeah, so I was a bit concerned when I saw that, and then this week I saw that what looks like a nuclear weapon going off, and I played the
Hmm.
footage, and I've put the link into the chat room as well, and I'll paste the link for us in our chat because we have a chat, everyone. All the hosts can talk to each other while we're on air, so that's the shared link, and if you're interested, you should have a look at that. It's also it'll be in the show notes, but it's also I'll post it again into the chat room for the station. I just put a comparison. I didn't do a side by side. I haven't got the technology, but I played one video, then I played the next one, and while one's at night and the other one's in the daytime, they're identical.
Hmm.
So you have to think about it as well. What this is what I'm saying is it instigated the peace talks, or it was the catalyst that forced the hand on the ceasefire with Putin and the Ukraine. That's what I think that was.
Hmm.
I'm just guessing. That's anyway. It's
Highly possible.
my own opinion.
Speaking
can,
of guessing,
yes, Pony. How are you? I was just about to introduce you, by the way.
I thought you were going to tie that in. Speaking of guessing, Pony
Oh,
likes to guess.
yeah. That's very nice.
Hey man, I reckon. Look, at the beginning, I was like, nah, it's not a nuke. It's not. But after just watching it a few more times,
Yep.
several hundred times,
Yep.
it's kind of starting to sink in that maybe it was,
Mm-hmm.
and that's quite frightening when you think of it, because if it's the beginning of the end almost. If that was one, and like I was one who was saying, oh, there's no bright flash, but no, there is, and I've got it on pause mode right now, 42 seconds in, and you can almost see the backside of the church or a building light up.
Yeah.
It's just lit everywhere for that nanosecond. So
And it's a huge shockwave up into the clouds.
yeah, there's the rolling fireball. You see
Yep,
that the
that's
shockwave
right.
reaches, but you do see that in other explosive videos. I've got an example if you want to see one just recently in Afghanistan.
Mhm.
But yeah, just the timing of it all. And they're pushing to Minsk, and there was even a 6.8 earthquake. When there was a 6.8 earthquake somewhere else, there was one near the Ukraine, just to the right of Minsk, which got
Wow.
scrubbed quickly.
Really?
Now you can Google
Wow.
that. Dutch since caught it. I even seen it popped up on my earthquake app. Just to the right of Minsk, man.
Okay.
6.8. Two days ago. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Now this whatever this blast was, okay, these were the events for me. Yeah, straight away they came out and said it was a nuke. Then they said, no, it was a chemical plant. You get this dejected Ukrainian dude talking real, like sad, like something bad's just happened.
Yeah.
But one thing where it fails is they try to present a missile shell casing. Now, if it was a nuke, it should be obliterated. No, it's kind of doing like a passport job at 9/11. Oh, look what's left behind. I don't know, just the thought. Now, there's a big crater they're showing. Now, I can't say it's from that because how'd they get in there so quick? If it was a old nuke, it must be a new nuke. One they've cleaned up, maybe neutron. I have no idea, not an expert. But the crater is massive. And so it seems to have been, it hit the ground and not an air bomb like the old style nukes as well.
Yep.
So again, I don't know what the hell it was. It was massive. It was frightening too. You can hear their gasps. You can just tell that's real. So, but they did hear something to alert them to turn their cameras on. Otherwise, they knew. But the way they reacted.
Yep.
Whew.
Well, when you hear the delay when you see the video that I posted from 1953, this is the test that the US military were doing with a 280mm cannon, an artillery cannon, which was sitting on a railway car. And when they fire that, the amount of time between that and then the nuke going off was roughly the amount of time that they had to start filming in that direction. They heard something. Right? And so this is the thing. It's not like, I just want to go out there with MH17 again. People were filming for 2 minutes before they saw a big puff of smoke on the horizon and there was no plane that came down. This seems like something got them to start recording. And I even saw the night vision one, which isn't great, but it shows more reflected light from other buildings, which is really good. The first one with the guy where the glass breaks, that's interesting. And then the other one I think is a better shot because it shows the blast wave and it shows a better formation of the cloud.
I'll post you this one.
Yeah, cool.
This one's
like
from the day,
Solaris
February 8th.
Off.
Oh, sorry, Solaris. I didn't
okay.
mean to. This is
Mecky's,
boy talk, I guess.
Yeah, Mecky's telling me to.
Mecky, sweet. Oh, do you want me to drop off and leave you to it?
He's messaged me. Sorry, everyone. Technical difficulties. Mecky says that he's got a connection, but when I try to pull him in, I can't. So
he's connected, huh?
Yeah, he's not really connected that well, to be honest. Not quite.
So that
enough.
one I just gave you is one of the first ones I've seen, and they have 2 videos in that. And so you see the dark one, maybe 3 videos. One, then you see.
Yeah, there's 3 videos. The dark one is the one that I used.
The 42-second mark is where it's probably the best quality, and you see absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So that in itself says a lot. Where's the destruction? So let's theorize they did it out in the open for people to see, but without the intent of damage, or it was a new type of device. But at the same time, you've got all the apparatuses of countries, their alerts would have gone off. Oh, something's just happened. Alarm 5, that means it's nuke or something like that. That would have had to have happened.
Yep.
There was an image going around too of a supposed satellite image of the horizon of this ball of light. I don't think that's real though. That kind of looks like it's from a movie or something, a poster.
Oh, right.
But again, no expert. So, yeah, nothing on the mainstream apart from the initial explosion and then hush hush.
So, it doesn't surprise me. And look, to have all of this, backwards and forwards and there's no progress whatsoever with the peace talks, yeah? And then suddenly you have an event like this, which is sort of hushed up, and it looks like a nuke, but then suddenly there's peace talks on the table and it's active shortly afterwards. Doesn't that surprise you?
Well, not really, but it does, says a lot. People started looking nervous and anxious, and
Mm-hmm.
they went to. I think Merkel went to freaking Moscow, didn't she? I'm not sure. So
I don't know.
She
just
did.
checking.
She did go.
Ah, see, this is it. This is why I'm. Please don't think that. I mean, I'm quietly paranoid, but I'm not as paranoid as to ignore it. I think because while that sounds a little unusual, I just want to remind everyone that it's very strange for there to be such disdain and they'll do anything else but want to talk about peace, and then suddenly an event like that and they're all on board going we're talking about a ceasefire, and it just doesn't it reek of World War II. Doesn't it have that? Is it just me, Mecky? Welcome on board.
Oh, look,
Mecky.
thanks, mate. I have to apologize, everybody. But I'm once again in Singapore, and believe it or not, in this high-tech city, it is still an issue
To get
get
internet.
the connection.
Well,
what can I say?
the video is streaming tremendously. I have to tell you that it looks
Now,
fantastic.
I'm actually in the club lounge in a hotel here, which has got excellent Wi-Fi. So I did a bit of running around, so it's all good. I'm with you, so I'm sure you can see me. Look,
Yes.
Dave, I agree with you. And like we've actually discussed before, the conditions right now are the same as both before World War One and World War Two combined. The same. Like the
Yes.
two wars, you look at
Yes.
it now, you have the exact same conditions. And in fact, not just World War One, not just World War Two, but both combined. That's what worries me. And you're right. There's a certain level of they used to call it appeasement. So the essentially what happened, the Allies used to let the people do whatever they wanted. The Hitler, I should say. It's called appeasement. And now we see the same or similar thing with Russia to some extent, right? I mean, we don't really take very strong action in the Ukraine, do we? I don't think we
No,
do.
we did nothing.
And that's not very strong action. Right? So the problem here is that we once again living in an era of appeasement, right? And the Chinese, they bide their time. You can say they will see what the outcome is. They're not stupid. But the Americans, the British, what are they really doing? Are they helping the Ukraine? They're talking about sending weapons. They're talking about sending soldiers. I haven't seen anything. The European Union is actually dependent on Russian oil and gas.
That's right.
Okay, so there's that lever as well. So no, Dave, sorry, long answer. Short message, yes, I agree.
Oh, I like that long answer, short message. It really is. It really is quite a surprise, and to hear that they're suddenly all wanting to talk about it. That was the clue for me. That was the hint. That was what kicked me over the line. Mecky, just for you, what I've done for you as well is I've also put the comparison video that we've got on our channel, showing the 1953 280mm artillery nuke.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, versus the one that we could see in that video from three different perspectives: a night camera and two, mobile phones. So,
Yeah.
and it looks identical.
Okay.
Anyway, to move on from there, the Grammys were on this week, and
Okay.
well, I saw them this week, having had them in my Foxtel planner, recorded for me, and I was. All I said in the first 3 or 4 performances of the musical artists, which were AC/DC, there was, I think, Katy Perry and someone else doing something. The Satanism in that, in the AC/DC opening number, they had every audience member with glowing red horns.
Oh, yes. In
Yes.
fact, Madonna did something like that, didn't
Yeah,
she?
Madonna did something as well. Also,
Yeah,
Katy
yeah.
Perry, or not Rihanna, but Katy Perry, I think, was on top of a pile of devils, all with their horns,
Yes.
and she was being, carried around. And look, it's funny to see that because of, and all I could say to myself was, wow, the YouTube's going to be alive with criticism, aiming at that blatant display once again of the satanistic ritual and the music industry and how the people have changed. And I've seen all those videos just like you have. And I just thought that our listeners might be interested to see, if they're not up with the Grammys and all the current music, that you really need to pay attention to this one. I think that was the most blatant display of that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like they took all those videos on board and went, hey, let's just knock their socks off.
It's like, you know what? We'll just do this, and we don't care anymore. So what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
So I was expecting Madonna to do the triangle shape, or to have the all-seeing eye somewhere, but it was focused pretty much on the devil signs, and it was.
Yeah.
All I can say is I was surprised. I was shocked that they went so far as what they did.
Were you shocked?
Oh, actually, not really. I lied.
Look,
I wasn't shocked. I was surprised they did it so blatantly. I use the word surprised.
Yeah, look, and I'm with you. And the problem here that we're having is when these things start to happen, and let's make no mistake, these are people driven by ego, right? Very much by ego. They need to perform for themselves and for others. And when that happens, when these things start to happen, when they just don't care anymore, when they flaunt it, it means we're approaching endgame. I'm not a doom monger.
No,
Okay,
neither of us are.
But the truth is, guys, when these things come out so openly, and that's just one example, by the way, right? There are others as well. And then you have to ask yourself, well, why would you do that? Well, you would do it because you have nothing left to lose. You no longer have to hide. You can come out in the open, do whatever you want, and just take it from there. And they just pretty much, thumbing their nose at us, saying, well, what are you going to do about it? Go on, do something.
Yeah. Yeah, but, and there hasn't been that much vocalization about it either, because it was so blatant. Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, don't forget, though, all right? Don't forget, and I'm coming across pretty strong here, that we have become very permissive. Okay, we have become very used to images like that. We've become used to this kind of content. And it took a long time to get there, but you could not have done this in USA 1952. Not possible.
Or in the 80s. Forget it.
Yeah, not going to happen. Now, whatever.
Well,
sure.
Whatever,
a zombie eats your face. Yeah, that's normal. It's okay.
Oh, look! Right before going on air, I watched the poor, I think, the fellow from India, the 74-year-old man who was brutally face-planted by police after, just walking along the sidewalk. And when he wasn't speaking English to them, and they couldn't get any information from him, their interrogation ceased with a "quit walking away from me," and they slammed him into the ground, severing his spine. There's 2 police cruiser videos that show it. And this is one of those things. What happened to the... Oh, well, that's all right. He's allowed to walk along the pavement if he wants to. Not a problem. And they just kept, where are you? Where do you live? Where are you going? Why aren't you replying to me? Do you speak English? And the other officer said, it appears he doesn't speak English. Well, that's the end of that interview, isn't it?
No, now we have to beat him.
Yeah. So right then, the other cruiser turns up and they pick him up. And I'm not paraphrasing. This is exactly what I witnessed on the video. And it's the dash cam from the police vehicle. And they slam him into the ground, the 2 officers, and that's it. And when they try to get him up after cuffing him, they say, why aren't you helping? Why aren't you, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you using your legs? Well, he's a paraplegic now. Thanks. Yeah, you just broke his spine. He can't use his legs anymore. They go, cross your legs, and they do it for him because he can't do it. And the officer who slammed him is picking the grass off his back because they don't want to make it look like he was, subdued in the way that he was, forcefully. And this is the same thing that I keep watching over and over again, example after example of people either shot down in, I have to say, cold blood murder, right? They're murdered in the street without a trial. This is the Dirty Harry days. When was it right? Mickey, when it's not right? It's still not right. And I have a really hard time watching our society break down in a way, the way it apparently seems to be.
Look, you're correct. The problem that we're having here is that the people that grew up with video games. I'm not going to blame video games here. That's too easy.
Yeah.
But the people are, they're growing up. The children that have been watching I'm not making this up. These are real statistics. Back in the 90s, I think a child by the age of 10 would have watched 20,000 murders on TV, things like that, right? Now, I'm not saying it's the same thing as watching a murder in real life, but you do experience a certain desensitization, and in fact, I think we see this across society. We see desensitization. We see, and not so much in Australia, I say, and we see also an unwillingness to help. We see a willingness to obey a lot more. The police officers and the police officers themselves. Don't forget, the policemen. They're just people in our society, right? Or police women. They grew up in the same way that we did. They had the same kind of influences. They become desensitized too. In fact, shows like what was it, the Cops or something, right?
Yes.
Or the world's worst cop videos. These shows have been on for a long time, and a lot of cops, I guess, see themselves as these macho, especially in the States, I'm afraid, as these macho enforcers of the law, right? Like Judge Dredd. It's judge and executioner in one. And it's not like that. We have the separation of powers. That's what democracy is about. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it's actually true.
But there's supposed to be a democracy, yeah.
Yes, and so the problem is that for the longest time we have now driven our children into a desensitized mode of operation. Okay? In fact, we're going to talk about that a bit later as well. But this is now the outcome. We're watching the fruits, and again, I think it's deliberate.
Yeah, but to me that's the scary thing. That once and all I can say is, it's. I never thought, having grown up the way I did, I never thought I'd see police doing what they're doing. And I'm not saying that the New South Wales Police that's the largest police force in the world, by the way, the New South Wales Police Force. I'm not sure that that they're behaving like this, because we don't see that. Look, in certain circumstances, the question's been raised once again here this week. I think it was this week, there was a 22-year-old woman who was holding a knife, who went into a Hungry Jack's, which is like Burger King. She went in, she bought a drink, she came out, she wasn't threatening anybody at all. She was just holding a kitchen knife.
Yeah.
And the police, instead of saying, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, what's with the knife? Why don't you put the knife down?" Or, should we be having a chat? What's wrong? Are you okay? They shot her fatally.
They did taser her first and pepper spray her as well.
Yeah,
and
that makes you happy, doesn't it?
Because that's put you in a happy place. But then they shot her. But the shots were fired to the center body mass. That's why she's dead.
We've spoken about this before. Yeah.
Exactly, rather than the leg. And again, I've got a lot of friends that are shooting. I'm a shooter. I have shot before in the past. I haven't shot in a long time. But our police, certainly in Australia, in America, it may be different. But the gun training is abysmal, and so I think they have to shoot twice a year. Okay, and that's not a lot if you want to be. If this is a tool of your trade, if you go to a plumber, and the plumber comes to your house and he needs a spanner. But he looks like he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's like, "Dude, what you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I only use a spanner twice a year."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's not working. That's not good.
Do you know what? They say that you should be firing a weapon every week, and for a while every week, and you can lose the sensitivity of the gun so easly. Now, I fall into two categories. One is I appreciate the use of a firearm. I appreciate the use of it in a control situation where it's required, and I also respect the right of gun ownership. I have to fall into all of those categories because I do. My problem is that I'm not sure if there's an easy way to filter out people who are angry using one, because just like someone would use words in anger, they're likely to use any weapon they have, whether it's words, whether it's if they're physically more capable of enforcing their opinion using violence, or if they have a handgun or some other weapon that they're going to use that. So their preference will be the one that's going to be most effective. We all do that. We don't, if there's a huge bully in front of you who's super strong, you're not going to start calling them names, which might work for someone less, diminutive. And this is the problem. I think that when it comes to choice, you're going to use something that's going to be effective. And I don't think that the firearm should be the first thing that's used. That's where I have the issue with all of them. We had that poor guy on the beach that was shot. He was surrounded by 7 officers and they shot him to death on the beach. The person who fired the shot at this 22-year-old woman was 4 meters away. Say 4 yards away, right? That person wasn't the one who was... They weren't having an issue with that person. Yeah? And so in America, I know that there's if there's 2 civilians with weapons, there's a point system of weapon. So if someone has a knife and someone punches the person with the knife, good for you. But if you have a knife and you use it over someone who has no weapon, you're at fault because you shouldn't have had to have used it. This is if everyone's sane, right? The next step up is with a handgun. If you shoot someone who's unarmed, that's bad for you, right? But if you shoot someone who's wielding a knife, well, you should have not chosen to shoot them fatally if it's 2 civilians. But then if it's a policeman, they can be in any situation. And see, I think there's the duality. There's 2 different existences here, and I think that it obviously warrants some kind of discussion. Clearly, if police wear the camera, at least something is going to happen, and you have the right to access the footage from it if you were the person involved in it, right? And
look,
are these steps make it go away or get better, or is it,
Well, it helps. It helps, but when we're talking about the appropriate use of force, right? And that's exactly what you've just outlined very beautifully. And the truth is, we've got a disproportionate use of force across the police forces in the world. And this is, again, deliberate, because, again, it's an us and them mentality. Because, again, we talk about that a bit today later on in the topic, but we have now created a world that is entirely for the elite. The laws are for us. The laws are for us. The paying of the tax, that's all for us. The going to jail, that's for us. Living the good life, that's for them. And having all the things they want, that's for them. And if you've got the Rothschilds at $500 trillion of personal wealth, you have to ask. So these people can. I'll tell you what this means, okay? Because this is interesting. So the Rothschild family, if they so chose, and they could still be billionaires, once they did it. They could end world hunger. They can end world poverty. They can give an education to every single child. They can build a house for every person on the planet. They can give every person on the planet 3 square meals a day.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what that means. Just to put it in context.
That's what the power of their money could do. And if this was a fair society, everyone would have access to that money. Oh, sorry, not money. Those facilities. Those facilities would be catered for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. And but it's they talk about this, and I think I can't remember his name now. The Ubuntu fellow, Michael Tillinger, he talks about this. He says that it's the central banks that are the ones who are just dissolving all of our wealth. They're taking it from us. They create wealth from nothing, of course. And what makes that worse is that if we were able to, not through communism or socialism, because they're just names to make you not want to do it, because we're meant to be in a capitalist society whose function is to be better than everyone else. That's the goal in this system we're living in, and we're supposed to appreciate how awesome. I watched Wolf of Wall Street last night. Yeah, right. So the thing that I worry about that with it is that it could so easily be turned around, but they say that humans are really they're it's almost programmed, and I don't believe it's true, but they're worried themselves that this is the case and it would always be the case. If you had a group of people who were living in a nice society, a nice one, and one person You know, you all fetched food for everybody else. It only takes one person to ruin it, and I'll tell you how they ruin it. Meki, so imagine it's the end of the world. As in my scenario, it's the end of the world, and we've grouped together like a council of people who are all willing to put in time for the group of, you know, the best of the group, right? If we were all growing and you know, contributing all of our stuff to a pool, and we all took our share from the pool, it'd be awesome. Anything else we could trade to our neighbor or whatever it is for anything we weren't producing, and that's fantastic. That's idealistic. However, if one person in there thinks to themselves, you know what, I'm the better hunter, so maybe I should, you know, have more food. That's the beginning of the end of that society, by that person allowed to have more than anyone else. Because they then start a wealth structure which is based on merit. And you know what? If you go to any place at all the elderly people are all sitting around because they're not able to physically go about their day and provide as much as the young, you know, people with young legs, you know, doing all the work. So it's meant to be a society, and everyone pools together, and the old people have knowledge, and the young people have a good skill set.
Yes.
And it's that combination that's meant to be powerful. Except what happens is what we've got, and that's the Bilderbergs, that's the Rothschilds, that's the, you know, in Australia, that's the person who's just won the lawsuit against Channel 9 for, you know, each one of those, they have more power than anyone could ever want or need, and more money than they can ever spend, and they withhold that from the rest of us, and by doing that, they create the class system.
Oh, completely. In fact, it's a very deliberate thing. Just on something you just said, I heard a beautiful quote recently. I want to share it with you because it fits. The quest for power in a relationship is the end of love, and the quest for power in a society is the end of that civilization in the same way. Okay, so as soon as you want more than the next person or feel entitled, I think the key thing is...
It's the entitlement.
Yes, and that's exactly where the downfall is, Dave. You described it beautifully, and it is very difficult to guard against. It's human nature, I guess. But the funny thing is this. You talk to regular folk, especially people that don't have very much. They say, look, I'm okay. I don't really want much more. You know, I just want to be able... My kids are okay. I want to have enough to eat. Good job. These are usually things people want. They want to be left in peace. Nobody wants to go to war, I can tell you that, because it's us that goes, right? So that's not going to help anyone. And most people just want to be left alone. Like I said, it is the others, the psychopaths, the sociopaths that actually get far, right? And we have to look at the elite here. They all fit the profile. That want more for themselves. And they don't give two dry figs for you or your safety. Or your family, for that matter. It doesn't matter. You just livestock.
Yeah, it doesn't even enter into a thought in their head.
No, completely not.
So anyway, Meki, during the break, I'm going to request that you flick the notes, if you can, again across to me.
Sure.
Because we've only got 6 minutes or something like that until the top, or maybe 9 minutes until the top of the hour. I'd like to say hello, just while we can. I'd like to say hello to everyone in the chat room who's been so awesome tonight and helped me out. I'd like to also thank Solaris and Pony for their contribution in the early part of the show. Thank you. It really does help, you know. It's actually quite tough, Meki, to do the show on your own. I know.
I'm sorry.
And no,
I was running around. So sorry. But look, guys, I do travel a lot. This time I didn't have to travel for work. Dave is on the way. But I'm here for Chinese New Year in Singapore. Awesome. And I tell you what, I put the flight map on in the plane. I was traveling with my daughter and my wife. It's my daughter's first overseas trip. And as we crossed over Subaraya, I just had the slightest tingling sensation in my stomach, obviously, because I'm thinking, oh man, this is the place. And then as we went across into Singapore, the Andaman Sea, and I thought about it. Because I mean, you're sitting in a plane and there's nothing you can do. You're a passenger. You're not even flying the thing, right?
That's right.
So if something goes wrong, what are you going to do? I mean, you have to make your peace with that. And because I do travel so much, every time I go on the plane, I'm thinking, yeah, look, I really have to put my life into the hands of a higher power, right? So it's the pilot, I mean. But yeah, it's a sobering thought. It just recently happened, right? You're flying over the same stretch of sea.
That's right.
As those poor guys did. But yeah. So look, in fact, today's show, which Dave has brilliantly produced and talented up to this point. Again, thank you, Pony and Solaris for stepping in. Today we want to talk to you about the 9 unknown men, right? And opposite to that, because we'll tell you about those guys and what they do, we also want to talk to you a bit about the people that probably rule this planet, what they do, how they do it, and so forth. And if you can't finish it today, we'll do it next week. But that's essentially the essence of the show. I don't know if you've heard about the 9 unknown men. We've spoken about them in the past. But that's certainly a very interesting topic, I think, Dave. It's something. It's actually the polar opposite to the elite, right? The 9 unknown men have a certain. What can I say? They've got a certain mandate.
I was going to say they have a certain anonymity.
Yeah, that too, and they have a certain code they live by, and the elite has got the exact opposite codes. But we'll get into that when I get to it. I will try, sir. I can't actually. Let me see if I can do something else with it.
I've asked Meki to flick the show notes through. That while I've got them, the show notes are in a different file format, so I'm having a bit of a technical issue trying to open them up.
In that case,
I don't mind if it's text only. It's fine.
Yeah, in that case, I have a solution for us.
Oh,
which might not be the most elegant solution.
Might not be a solution at all, to be honest.
No,
we're
it
good.
is.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can live through it.
So here we go. But guys, so it is very important that we understand who pulls the strings and why. So
Simply Red says, Narara, I believe it. Going back to watching the Civil War, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it really is. I was talking to a friend of the show's, best put it that way, and he is a finance guy. He's very cluey. He's switched on, and he was talking to me. I was reminding him kindly about fractional reserve lending, and we did a 6-show cycle on it, like 12 hours of it. And I was telling him that the problems with that, and that there isn't really any base money, that we're all under the impression there is, because that's what the system's supposed to provide. But I gave him the example that 3 banks pass the money around twice to each other, each time accelerating that quantity of money that they're giving out by 10 times, because they're only required to keep 10%. That's funny because there was music, and it's okay, Meki. And what they do is, as they're doing this, is it goes around. So I lend, say, Meki, $10. He can loan 100. And if we did it with 3 banks and we just went around in a circle, neither of us would know where the money came from or what the base value was. But it all started from $10, and now there's $1 million. And that's how easy that is. It really isn't very difficult to generate $1 million. And there was still only, I think it would be, I think there was $5,000 or $55,000 to back up the $1 million in total.
Yep.
There really isn't very much money there. So if there was a run on the banks would have empty pockets.
Completely. Let's be clear, guys. Once again, what Dave has just described is the creation of money that does not exist. Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist. Like, let that sink in. If I have $100 worth of real money, that can be turned into $1,000, and that can be turned to 10, 100, million, with the flick of a switch these days.
That's right. It's not even real.
No.
Yep. So this is the thing, is, since we've got electronic banking, you could just be paying people not with actual money, just deposit a value in their account. It doesn't even have to exist.
Yep.
It's not real.
It's-
There isn't any money.
Yeah.
It hasn't been real for a while. 30 years now, it's not been real. So it doesn't really matter anymore. I don't think it matters. And all this debt could just be wiped straight away. It wouldn't really matter. And I appreciate the complexity around the value of money against each other, but that would be done so easily if there was one World Bank, one single governing body that governed the earth. Then it wouldn't have to have trade money anymore. It would be all the same currency. Nothing would matter.
And the thing is this: the element of exactly, the element of control that the powers that be have at that point is absolute. Because if you live in a society that barters, like skills against goods or whatever, you've got control over your fate. Right? You've got a skill, like a hunter or a fisher. You trade it for someone who makes beds or cupboards. That works. But even when you've got some substitute for that kind of stuff, like gold or silver, that everybody accepts is worth something, right? That's just something you can trade. It's a real thing you can hold. People can steal it, but it's real. You can hide it, right? Same with money, physical money, right? Once you move into cyberspace for your financial needs, what do you hold on to? What happens if all the computers crash? What happens if the elite decides you no longer exist and your credit is cancelled? What are you going to do?
They hit the
How are you
delete
going to
button.
pay? Yeah, but what are you going to do? Seriously, what are you going to do? Not a lot. Not a lot here. So these are things worth considering, guys.
The same jokes were made about Eastern Bloc countries, where they just made you disappear if they didn't like you.
Yeah.
If they have the power to be able to do that, now, and with all of that, metadata laws and everything, people are, going away.
Dave, what is metadata?
Do I have to answer? We've only got 1 minute.
No, it's all good.
All right.
Because the politicians don't.
I know, they have no idea what it is.
No.
But obviously, initially, because the music's going to start in a second, but initially it was just your IP address, or initially with phones, it was your phone number and who you called, how long you're on the call for. And there's the music, but now it's the internet. Think about it. It's the internet. It's everything we do. I want you to remember that during the break while you're hitting the donate button at freedomslips.com. And I'll talk to you after the break.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
On the go? Still want to listen? Don't have one of those fancy phones with too many buttons. Don't know what an app is? Or you don't even care? Well, we got you here at Revolution Radio. Now you can dial in 24/7 to listen to our shows. We have a number for Studio A and Studio B, and best of all, it's free. Don't forget, carrier charges for your cell phone provider may apply, though, so check with your cell provider to make sure. So ready? Here you go. Get a pen. Here's the number. Studio A is 712-432-6958, and Studio B is 716-748-0112. Thank you very much for listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host. Not necessarily represent the opinions.
You're back with David Mackey, Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com. That's right, the #1 listener-supported talk radio in the universe. I just put that in there. Since it is listener-funded radio, and if you like what you hear, please go to freedomslips.com and push the donate button like I asked you previously before the station break. It's on the left in the chat if you don't know where it is. And you know what? I donated by buying a CD of the twin CD of the 12 best interviews from last year on the station. And that's what I support the station too, you know? It's really cool. And I can't wait to see if one of our interviews, Mecky, made it to the best of 12. I know, it'd be awesome. So I have to wait a little while before it arrives. But
well, we had 2 of those guests.
We
right?
did.
So,
we had Brian Foster and Stanton Friedman. They're
correct.
included in that list of awesome guests. Best interviews ever from 2014. So fingers crossed. I hope that we made it to the top and we're not on the Christmas reel. Oh boy. At the same time as you know, I've got the mic, my talking stick. I'd like to thank all the new listeners, all the people who are subscribing to us now on all of the platforms we're on. I'd like to thank you, everyone who's emailed me personally, because you're allowed to, you know, and I'll reply. If you Facebook me, I'll hit add, and it's all good. You can, you know, see what's going on. We can chat. You can see all the stuff I post. But I recommend that you go to Shiny Side Out and follow that.
Just on that, everybody is welcome to join us on Facebook, of course. However, if I see you advertising your products, you will be out on your ass. Excuse me. So fast, your head is gonna spin. Okay, I have kicked out 5 people now.
Mm-hmm.
That as soon as they came on, well, we should have we should have known better, because they only started existing 1 month before they joined us.
Aha, yes.
So
That's a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah. So don't join us, please. Join the conversation, please. Even if you want to criticize us, that's cool. But do not spam us. Do not advertise your products on our site. That's all.
Yeah. They clearly don't spam us, right? But we'll have a discussion with you. Absolutely.
Sure. Completely.
That's what we do. We actually want that interaction. We want you to talk to us. Talk to us
Yeah.
about whatever it is, and and correct us if we're wrong. Tell us we're wrong. Show us how we're wrong, and we'll if you want credit for it, we'll give you the credit for it. We don't mind.
Completely. No, this is not about. This is not grandstanding. We don't have an ego problem, Dave and I.
Mm-hmm.
Dave and I are doing this because we were allowed to. We can. And we've got certain interests that some people might share, certainly, hopefully you guys out there. But this is not about us. This is just about bringing information out. If we're bringing the wrong information or false information, we don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's important. So just let us know if we get it wrong.
And, also email us if we've offended you in any way, let us know. Because I don't think that's not our goal. And we'd like to know that we did or didn't step over the line the wrong way. And if there is a line, let us know. How you feel about it. Anyway, so look, that's all aside now. Mekki, I've posted the live feed into the chat, and I swear, if you're not in the chat room right now, you are missing out. It's going crazy. There's so many. It's full, and it's not full. I mean, it could take some more people on, but it's like a room full of, I don't know, and it's like 50 people in there, and as we talk about things, they're interacting with themselves, and we can see their texts as they go by, and it's a great experience. It really is.
Yeah, that's true. It is actually very full today. That's awesome.
So in the early days, Mekki and I used to read out some of the names, because that was what we did. But we've got. I actually had a conversation, Mekki, with someone, and they said, your show is so jam-packed full of stuff, we can, I want to talk about something, but you're already way past that. When they got to the Skype or their phone, so, I'll just let it go.
Right. Oh, that's a shame. Maybe we'll give you less content.
No.
So
Mekki, we missed out of this in the beginning of the show. This is show number 155. It's one show away from our 3-year anniversary.
That is correct. 550 and 100, guys. 550 and 100. It's a milestone. I mean, next week will be, certainly. So I think it's awesome.
Right. And today's show it's primarily, and it will be about, for this next hour, we're talking about the 9 unknown men.
Yes,
or the 9
correct.
unknown.
Yes.
If they're unknown, we're not sure of the gender, but it's assumed at this time that they are men.
Yeah, well, that's how it started out, some 2,000 years ago. That's what legend has, anyway. So, look, Dave, let's get right into it. So, essentially, first of all, we do know it's a 1923 novel by Talbot Mundy. We know that. Okay, it was originally serialized in Adventure magazine, and it concerns the 9 unknown men, which was a secret society that was founded by the Mauryan Emperor Ashoka around 270 BC to preserve and develop knowledge that would be dangerous to humanity if it fell into the wrong hands. And the 9 unknown men were each entrusted with one book of secret knowledge, so altogether 9 books. Okay, now in the novel, the 9 men are the embodiment of good and face up against the 9 Kali worshippers, right? Kali, the god of or goddess of destruction. Now, within Hindu mythology, this is not a bad thing. You need to destroy the universe once in a while to rebuild it from scratch. Okay, so it's just part of the cycle. So don't think of it as a duality thing between good and evil. It's not that.
Oh,
okay,
that was on my calendar for next week.
Sorry. So don't confuse that. Okay, it's not good versus evil. Within Hinduism, it's a natural cycle of things. Okay, and it's not seen as a bad thing. Okay, now the story in the book is around a priest called Father Cyprian, who is in possession of the books, but who wants to destroy them out of Christian piety, and a number of other characters who are interested in learning the contents. So it's actually it's adventure book. I haven't read it myself, but I've read the synopsis. Reads interesting. Reads like a typical 1920s kind of science fiction adventure novel, if you like that kind of thing. So I think it's pretty cool. So I will make an effort to see if I can find the actual novel and read it. Now, just to give you a background on the books, Dave, the 9 books that we have are Propaganda and Psychological Warfare, Physiology, including secrets concerning the touch of death. Touch of death. Ooh, I'm sorry. Microbiology, alchemy, communication, including communication with extraterrestrials.
Oh, I like that one.
Right. Gravity and anti-gravity devices. The Vimanas, which are, well, they're not really the ancient UFOs of India because we know what they are. So they are actually IFOs, identified flying objects, right? Cosmology, including hyperspace and time travel.
Wow.
And light, and the technology capable of modifying the speed and light. The speed of light. Okay,
Wait,
so that's interesting.
But Becky,
Yeah,
wait. Hang on. These were written when?
Well, according to legend, 2,000 years ago.
But we didn't even know
Yeah.
light had a speed. We
Well-
didn't know it, no, we didn't know it had one. We thought it was
Well-
instantaneous.
Yours and my ancestors probably didn't. All right, so being European cave dwellers, but
Of course.
And the key thing here is this, guys, and we're actually going to talk about this a little bit later in the show, or next week if we don't have time. The key thing here is that if you take as an assumption that there was once a very highly advanced civilization, or several of them,
Yes.
which had highly advanced knowledge, then this is not really very amazing at all. In fact, all Indians are pretty much going, we know that. It's written in our books. Read them, you know?
Yeah, not even knew that.
No.
It's fully understood.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's get deeper into the mystery, and I think we should take it paragraph by paragraph here, Dave.
Let's do
That
it.
makes it more interesting, I think, because you've got a beautiful speaking voice, sir. Now, so this tradition goes back to the time of Emperor Ashoka, like we said, who reigned in India from 273 BC. He was the grandson of Chandragupta, who was the first to unify India. Ambitious like his ancestor, whose achievements he was anxious to complete, he conquered the region of Kalinga, which lay between what is now Calcutta and Madras. The Kalingans resisted and lost 100,000 men in battle.
At the site of this massacre, Asoka was overcome. For ever after he experienced a horror of war, he renounced the idea of trying to integrate the rebellious people, declaring that the only true conquest was to win men's hearts by observance of the laws of duty and piety, because the sacred majesty desired that all living creatures should enjoy security, peace, and happiness, and be free to live as they pleased.
Now, that's extremely forward-thinking, isn't it, guys? 2,000 years ago. Now, he was a convert to Buddhism, and by his own virtuous example, he spread this religion throughout India. And in fact, his entire empire, which included Malaya, Ceylon, and Indonesia. Later, Buddhism penetrated to Nepal, Tibet, China, and Mongolia. That was after his death. Asoka nevertheless respected all religious sects. He preached vegetarianism, abolished alcohol, and the slaughter of animals. Once again, extremely forward-thinking kind of guy.
You know, Becky, if you didn't know this, H.G. Wells, in his abridged version of his outline of world history, wrote, among the tens of thousands of names of monarchs accumulated in the files of history, the name Osaka shines almost alone like a star.
Yes. Now, H.G. Wells, you might know from The Time Machine, and The Shape of Things to Come, was actually also a historical writer.
Wow.
He wrote the history of the world.
Yep.
Well, the outline of the world history, of course, and quite a learned scholar. So to give that high praise to Asoka means, if you look at what he did and his policies, he was a humanitarian. He preached egalitarianism. All right, everybody should live in happiness and be left in peace. You should be able to worship any which way you want. you shouldn't kill animals, right? And he took alcohol, I would imagine other drugs as well, out of society, which could potentially lead to conflict. So I think he was an extremely enlightened ruler. Now, so it is said that because of those horrible war memories, of the 100th, I mean, I can't even imagine a battlefield with 100,000 people dead. That's anyway, but so because of that, he wished to, prevent men from ever putting their intelligence to evil uses again. During his reign, natural science, past and present, especially past, was vowed to be secret. Henceforward, and for the next 2,000 years, all researchers, ranging from the structure of matter to the techniques employed in collective psychology, were to be hidden behind the mystical mask of a people commonly believed to be exclusively concerned with ecstasy and supernatural phenomena. Asoka founded the most powerful secret society on Earth, that of the 9 unknown men.
Wow. According to legend, upon his conversion to Buddhism after a massacre during one of his wars, the emperor founded the Society of the Nine to preserve and develop knowledge that would be dangerous to humanity if it fell into the wrong hands.
Some versions of the story, and this is interesting, guys, now listen up, include an additional motivation for the emperor to conceal scientific knowledge. Now, this is what it is. Remnants of the Rama Empire, an Indian version of Atlantis, which according to Hindu scripture was destroyed by advanced weaponry 15,000 years earlier. Again, that number, right? We've come across that before. And in fact, it is part of the Mahabharata writing. It's part of the Vedic writings that you find in Indian literature. And in India, it's not so much looked at as a work of fiction, but rather something in the historical past.
Wow. Well, I really want to get my teeth into the Mahabharata. And
Good luck. It's
I
big
know.
one.
Yeah. It's like War and Peace.
Yeah.
It is still thought that the great men responsible for the destiny of modern India and scientists like Bose and Ram believe in the existence of the Nine, and even receive advice and messages from them. What's this? What's CF, Mickey?
These are examples of where that could have happened. So CF is just a quoting.
Oh, right, okay. So Phyllis Schlemmer, modern Council of Nines, in quotes, which channeling sessions have drawn such notables as Yuri Spoonbender Geller, physicist, and Dr. Andrija.
Yep.
Andrija Spectra Puharich.
Very good.
And I'm practicing. And of
Very
course, social sci-fi meta-programmer extraordinaire Gene Star Trek Roddenberry.
Yes. So these guys all went to Phyllis Schlemmer's channeling sessions. And think of the old seances around the table, right? Mm-hmm. And she was channeling those guys, and those guys went to those sessions.
Wow.
Okay, so this is taken quite seriously by a number of people. Now, one can imagine the extraordinary importance of secret knowledge in the hands of 9 men, benefiting directly from experiments, studies, and documents accumulated over a period of more than 2,000 years. In fact, I don't think that's true at all. I think it's much more than 2,000 years, right? Because back then they had that knowledge as well, which they then kept secret. And since then, of course, other advances have come across, which might now be equaling the knowledge they already had. Now, what could have been the aim of those men, Not to allow methods of destruction to fall into the hands of unqualified people, of course, and to pursue knowledge which would benefit mankind, one would hope. Their numbers would be renewed by co-option so as to preserve the secrecy of techniques handed down from ancient times, meaning the people that were chosen to carry these secrets were hand-picked. Okay, and then, yes. I guess brainwashed to some extent as well, right?
Well, if you're told that you need to be quiet about it, I'm sure you're going to. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Honestly, the acceptance of Into the Nine would mean that you've basically given up everything that you've believed in. Or, simply put, I would do it.
Yeah.
I'd shut up.
Exactly. That's my point here as well, Dave. And this is very, very important. Now, both Dave and I know things that others might not know, and we were asked not to tell.
Yep.
Dave, different to me. And I haven't told, and I know that Dave hasn't told.
Yeah, I'm not telling a word.
So when people say, "Oh, it's impossible to keep a secret," no, it's not.
No,
It's not impossible to keep a secret, okay? It all depends on the ethical and moral fiber of the secret keeper. That's what's important.
In fact, that's true. Because, remember, as a kid, if you tell a kid a secret, you say, look, I've hidden the chocolate under the lounge. Don't tell anyone. Good luck if it's there tomorrow. All right?
Yeah.
And other children will walk up to you going, can I have a chocolate too? Right? And they don't understand, okay? So you really need to have the respect of the secret itself. Examples. Now I'm going to take this, Mickey, because the examples of the 9 unknown men making contact with the outer world are rare. There was, however, an extraordinary case of one of the most mysterious figures in Western history, the Pope Sylvester II, known also by the name Gerbert de Aurillac. Aurillac.
Very good.
There you go, Aurillac. Got it. Born in the Aveyron in 1920, and I'm sure all the French people are turning in their graves, him especially. Deceased in 1003, Gerbert was a Benedictine monk, professor at the University of Reims, Archbishop of Ravenna, and Pope by the grace of Otho III.
Yeah. And he is supposed to have spent some time in Spain, after which a mysterious voyage brought him to India, where he is reputed to have acquired various kinds of skills which stupefied his entourage. Now, before I go on, that reminds me of the Count de Saint-Germain, who was in Europe some 600-700 years later. Anyway,
we spoke about Count Germain.
Absolutely, we did. For example, he possessed in his palace a bronze head which answered yes or no to questions put to it on politics or the general position of Christianity. So let me say that again. Gerbert had a bronze head in his palace which answered yes or no to questions put to it on politics or the general position of Christianity. Okay, that was in the year 1000.
On Tron, inside the movie Tron, he has a single bit, and if he asks a question, it replies yes or no. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the same technology.
Yep.
There's something there that was advising him whether a direction or... because it was only yes or no. So you have to pose it a question with a yes or no answer. I really liked that. I thought it was awesome in Tron, of course, and having crashed into something but still survived. The pilot of the craft says something like, that was good we didn't crash. No. No, it says in response immediately. I'm good at this. No. According to Sylvester II, this was a perfectly simple operation corresponding to a 2-figure calculation. Mm-hmm. Let me say it again, a 2-figure, hyphenated, 2-figure calculation, and was performed by an automation similar to our modern binary machines. This magic head was destroyed when Sylvester died, and all the information it imparted carefully concealed. No doubt an authorized research worker would come across some surprising things in the Vatican Library. We know that's been closed for years, and is only upon precise request are you gained access, and only with background checks and signed documents. Forget it, you're not getting in.
Actually, I think, and I could be wrong, I'm happy to be corrected here, I think you're only allowed access to materials that you can name.
Oh.
So right, so I have no idea what's in there. How would I know? That's not fair.
Oh, I'd be the door saying, "Can I have a look at the extraterrestrial document?" They go, "No." Okay, the document on extraterrestrials? No. The research the Vatican has on extraterrestrials? No.
No. Hot dog. Am I getting close?
Yeah. Nope.
Now, the next piece is quite interesting. In the Cybernetics Journal, Computers and Automation of October 1954, okay, some 70 years ago now, almost, right? No, actually it is 70. Anyway, the following comment appeared. We must suppose that he, and they're talking about Pope Sylvester here, was possessed of extraordinary knowledge and the most remarkable mechanical skill and inventiveness.
Wow.
The speaking head must have been fashioned under a certain conjunction of stars occurring at the exact moments when all the planets were starting on their courses. Now that's taking a bit of poetic license, but the point, but the point here is, I think what we need to do is understand that Sylvester probably plugged into an ancient and hidden wealth of knowledge, maybe hidden by the 9 unknown men, right? Mm-hmm. And how else can you explain things like that, or the Antikythera mechanism, right, or other things that are sort of looking at us from the dim past?
Well, that's a nice segue, because neither the past nor the present nor the future entered into it. Since this invention apparently far exceeded in its scope its rival, the perverse mirror on the wall of the Queen, in another example, the precursor of our modern electric brain.
Completely. Naturally, it was widely asserted that Gerbert was only able to produce such a machine because he was in league with the devil. Oh, well,
of course.
And had sworn eternal allegiance to him. Well, what a shock. Had other Europeans any contact with the Society of the 9 Unknown Men? It was not until the 19th century that this mystery was referred to again in the works of the French writer Jacques Collot.
Neki, the whole thing about if you know anything, you're in party with the devil.
Yeah.
That's demonizing the knowledge.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course.
Because you're not allowed to know that. That's the devil's work. That is.
And if that's the Pope though they're accusing here, right?
Yeah.
So okay. So think about that for a second. And if you were accused of that, of being in league with the devil, pretty much everybody except for the Pope, and he was probably accused after his death anyway, you would be ending up at the stake, okay?
Yeah,
at the wrong end
would
of the
no
stake.
longer exist. Mm-hmm.
Completely. So that's go on.
That's okay. The French writer was consul at Calcutta under the Second Empire. He wrote some quite important prophetic works comparable, if not superior to, those of Jules Verne, and we all know his work. He also left several books dealing with the great secrets of the human race. A great many occult writers, prophets and miracle workers have borrowed from his writings, which, completely neglected in France, are well known in Russia. Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know, right? In fact, I find the Russians that have a certain bend towards supernatural. They seem to take it a lot more seriously. They sent, expedition into the Tunguska region in 1919, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that some actually it wasn't 1919, it was 1934. So they arrived at the Kulik went there. Yeah, that's right. Anyway,
but the Russians are more open to paranormal.
Yeah,
completely.
Exactly. Completely right. So anyway, Jacques Collot states categorically that the Society of 9 did actually exist. Once again, he states categorically that the 9 unknown men exist. Mm-hmm. And to make it all the more intriguing, he refers in this connection to certain techniques unimaginable in 1860, such as, for example, the liberation of energy, sterilization by radiation, and psychological warfare. This is 1860, guys. This is probably 60 years before Freud.
Wow.
Okay, so
they barely made the word up.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. Yersin, one of Pasteur and de Rose' closest collaborators, was entrusted, it seems, with certain biological secrets when he visited Madras in 1860. And following the instructions he received, was able to prepare a serum against cholera and the plague.
Yep.
There's knowledge leaking, Meki.
Absolutely. Now, we've already spoken about the book that was written by Talbot Mundy. Okay. And Talbot Mundy, we should say here, was a member of the British police force in India for 25 years. Okay. So he was in the subcontinent. That's where he may have gotten his knowledge. His book is half fiction and half scientific inquiry. The 9 apparently employed a synthetic language, and each of them was in possession of a book that was constantly being rewritten and contained a detailed account of some science. Now, just quickly, and I just thought of this last night, in fact. Is it possible that the Voynich manuscript is one of the 9 books? Just putting it out there. Just
because that's a synthetic language.
Yes, and it's we have no idea what it says, right? It looks something about stars, maybe something about plants. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting it out there, it could be completely wrong, but it just occurred to me last night.
Wow, nice segue, Mickey. Okay, so the first of these books, of the 9 books, wasn't it, Mickey?
Correct, sir.
The first of these books is said to have been devoted to the technique of propaganda and psychological warfare. The most dangerous of all sciences, wrote Mundy, is that of moulding mass opinion, because it would enable anyone to govern the whole world. Indeed, the Rockefeller-funded exploits of such notables as Harvard's Dr. John Mack and CSETI's Dr. Steve Greer, along with such other notables as the military intelligence community's PSYOP, or psychological warfare operative extraordinaire Michael Temple of Set, that's in quotes, Aquino, Dr. John LSD Dolphins, and sensory deprivation tanks, Lilly, I love these terms, and Babylon Bunch, or the Babylon Bunch, i.e. Crowley, Parsons, Hubbard, etc., 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 the list goes on. My goodness me.
Yeah. Now, to expand on that point, it must be remembered that Koripsky's General Semantics did not appear until 1937, and it was not until the West had the experience of the last World War that the techniques of the psychology of language, for example, propaganda, could be formulated. Okay, the first American College of Semantics only came into being in 1950. In France, almost the only book that is at all well known is Serge Chocotinin's La Viole des Foules, which means the rape of the masses, which has had considerable influence in intellectual political circles, also deals only superficially with the subject.
Wow. The second book was on psychology. That's not psychology, that's sociology. Physiology. Sorry, physiology. So that's what the second book was on. It explained, among other things, how it is possible to kill a man by touching him, death being caused by a reversal of the nerve impulse. That's like Mr. Spock's sleep hold.
That's right.
It's said that judo is a result of leakages from this book. I did judo. I didn't make it very far through it. I gave up, but I did judo. Too much interpersonal space, for my liking.
Fair enough. Now, this is you just mentioned a very important point. Now, some of the knowledge will, of course, leak. Mm-hmm. I guess that's inevitable due to various circumstances. I think it's astonishing that so little has leaked. Sometimes the knowledge, as we said earlier, is also given when it's necessary, like in the fighting of diseases, like the plague or such. Right? Now, the third volume, excuse me, was a study on microbiology and dealt especially with protective colloids, like colloidal silver, for example.
The fourth was concerned with the transmutation of metals. There is a legend that in times of drought, temples and religious relief organizations received large quantities of fine gold from a secret source.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm smelling monatomic gold, Mickey.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
The fifth volume contains a study of all means of communication, terrestrial and extraterrestrial. Now, keep in mind that this is 250 before the Common Era, 2,000 years ago, guys.
Huh. The sixth expounds the secrets of gravitation.
Yeah, while the seventh contains the most exhaustive cosmogony known to humanity.
Wow. The 8 deals with light, as we spoke about before.
Yeah, and the 9th volume deals with sociology and gives the rules for the evolution of societies and the means of foretelling their decline. That sounds a lot like the foundation cycle if you read science fiction. It's about future history in those science fiction books and the mathematical prediction of how a society will develop. Fascinating stuff. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Now,
Of course, and their decline.
Yes, absolutely. Connected with the 9 unknown men is the mystery of the waters of the Ganges. Multitudes of pilgrims suffering from the most appalling diseases bathe in them without harming the healthy ones. The sacred waters purify everything. That's actually true. And nobody has any idea why that happens. There's something in the Ganges. Yeah, might. Very good. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So it's quite possible. Now, the next paragraph goes into some more detail there, Dave.
Their strange properties have been attributed to the fact that they contain bacteriophages. And we know what a phage is if you're into Star Trek. They actually named something the phage. But why should these not be formed in the Brahmaputra, the Amazon, or the Seine? Jacquelot, in his book, advances the theory of sterilization by radiation. 100 years before such a thing was thought to be possible, not even done, just possible. These radiations, he says, probably come from a secret temple hollowed out in the bed of the Ganges.
I like the monatomic gold theory, but either way is good. Now, avoiding all forms of religious, social, or political agitations, deliberately and perfectly concealed from the public eye, the 9 were the incarnation of the ideal man of science and woman, of course, serenely aloof but conscious of their moral obligations, having the power to mold the destiny of the human race, but refraining from its exercise. This secret society is the finest tribute imaginable to freedom of the most exalted kind. I would say one thing here.
Yep.
I believe, personally, okay, and I'm just going to put it out there, that the Freemasons have the same mandate. Very, very same mandate. And I think the other societies as well, one of which I actually know of, have the same mandate as well. They all have the same charter. Guard the knowledge, transmit it through the generations until it's needed.
Mickey, I've got my tinfoil hat on right now.
Yes, sir.
And I really actually do. And one of the things that I saw in the Fifth Element, in the movie The Fifth Element, because I think movies and I think science fiction has a lot of commentary on the current life, and that is whether it's juxtaposed or it's as contrast, or if it's not contrasting, it's telling the tale, and that is that the religion of the time shown in the Fifth Element was to keep alive the prophecy so they knew what to do when the time came. The whole movie is based. That's what the whole thing is.
You're correct.
They have to know where it is, what to do, everything, and it's been boiled down to such minimal words as to barely comprehend the actual thing that you're supposed to do when the time comes. Okay, so that's my tinfoil hat off. Looking down from the watchtower of their hidden glory, these 9 unknown men watch civilizations being born, destroyed, and reborn again, tolerant rather than indifferent, and ready to come to the rescue, but always observing that rule of silence that is the mark of human greatness.
Absolutely. Now, all of the things we've discussed actually make perfect sense, like we already said, right? And I've already made the link to other secret organizations that might have the same charter. Now, if powerful and advanced civilizations have existed in the past, it stands to reason that some of their know-how and tech would pose a potentially great threat in the wrong hands. I mean, I think that's clear, right? And I think we have the evidence for that tech existing. I mean, again, my favorite example here is the 1,000-ton blocks at Baalbek. 1,000-ton blocks. Forget about being able to do it.
Yeah.
Why? Why would you do it? Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Forget about being able to do it, but why? Anyway, so I'm putting it out there. Now,
my answer to Meki is the only reason you would do it is because you could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no other reason.
And we can't do it.
No, well, we can't, no. In fact, like I said, it's very difficult to lift. Not that you have to build a special crane. You could build a crane that the whole thing might actually crack under its own weight if you lift it wrong, right? So it's extremely difficult. Anyway, so would it therefore not be wiser to conceal some of the ancient science, right, until such a time when we're ready for it? So this is what the 9 elements are all about.
Yep.
Now, which brings us, of course, to the potential secret rulers of our world, right? So so you have these people potentially working on our favor, hiding the knowledge, if you will. Now, but equally, Dave and I believe there are certain groups, or a group, or an elite group, if you will, of people ruling us, trying to shut us down, if you will, as human beings. And we spoke about this in the first hour at length. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, which almost speaks of an end game, if you will. Right? So this is really weird. And once again, we'll take the paragraphs in turn here. So this is a bit sobering. This is probably the most sobering component of the show. The human race, without realizing it, we don't know this, right? We spent virtually our entire lives, okay, and all our talents, all our inventions, all our progressive developments, right, all of the things that we do every day, all the wonderful things we do every day, only adding to the wealth and stranglehold over human life already possessed by those who control the money and mediums of exchange, that are required for us to do our daily transactions. That's just nuts.
Yeah, it is, and like I think since the 80s, I've had my eyes opened, and I'm beginning to see the quicker release of information, at the more apparent control. I don't think the media is helping their invisibility cloak. I think it's actually destroying it. So, anyway, for centuries, men have worked not for themselves and their families, but for the world's money changers. It's hidden through actual rulers.
Yeah. So revolutions and wars, together with worldwide poverty and its endless cycles of depressions and unemployment and misery and on and on and on, comprise the broadest channels through which the hidden rulers constantly growing accumulations of gold, silver, and jewelry flowing into their treasuries. Okay?
Absolutely.
Now, let's take a closer look at this. And Dave, why don't you take a closer look at it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to. Thank you for that. The shadow forces behind the New World Order agenda. Somewhere near the very top of the pyramid, an extremely elitist organization known as the Council of the 13 Families orchestrates all of the major world events. As the name suggests, the council consists of the top 13 most influential families on Earth.
An increasing number of people is becoming aware that 99% of the Earth's population is controlled by an elite of 1%. But the Council of the 13 Families consists of less than 1% of the 1%. Mm-hmm. So let me say this again. So there's 100% of us, and 99% of us are just surplus to requirement. Okay?
Surplus dividend, Mickey.
That's right. And so the 99 are controlled by the 1%. The 1% is, everybody's familiar with the term. The 1% is the money people, the rich guys. That's cool. However, the Council of the 13 Families we are talking about consists of less than 1% of the 1%ers. Mm-hmm. And you can't apply for membership. You have to be born into those guys. And just a warning here, okay? If you don't want to know anymore, switch off now, because we're going to name names. So go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Thanks for that, Mickey. You're awesome at that. Best I do it here anyway, to be honest.
Yes.
In their opinion, they are entitled to rule over the rest of us because they are the direct descendants of the ancient gods and consider themselves royal. These families are, and I'm going to say our.
We can take him a turn.
That's okay. Our audience is probably across this at the moment. There might be a surprising name come up here and there. Okay, so I'll start the Rothschilds.
Yes, and of course the original name for those guys is Bauer or Bauer. Yep. And then there's the Bruces.
Mm-hmm. Cavendish, which was originally Kennedy.
Yeah. And you also have the Medicis.
Hanover.
Habsburg.
Oh, I knew this one. The Krupp or the Krupp.
Yeah. Very good. The Plantagenets.
Oh, and now my favorite, Rockefeller.
Yeah. The Romanovs.
Sinclair. We used to be Saint Clair, but it's now Sinclair.
Yeah. Warburg or Del Banco.
And Windsor, or the Saxon, Goburg or Goth.
Yeah, that's right.
Coburg. And you'll notice a lot of anglicisation of these names.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The Rothschilds dynasty is unquestionably the most powerful visible bloodline on Earth, and their estimated wealth is around 500 trillion.
That's incredible. They exercise their power through the world banking empire, which is almost entirely owned by them.
Wow. The most important institutions that work hard to establish the New World Order and completely enslave our species are...
Go ahead, you take it first.
The City of London, which is doing it via finance controlled by the Rothschilds, not part of the UK. Remember that. This is private.
Now, this is actually very interesting, that none of these entities are part of the nation they're actually residing in.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is the US Federal Reserve, once again finance, private bank, owned by the Rothschilds, and not part of the USA or the federal government.
No, that's right. You'll notice the installation of the central banks in each country. The Vatican City, indoctrination, deception and scare tactics, not part of Italy.
Yep. Now, this one might come as a surprise. Washington, D.C., military, mind programming, we spoke about that, brainwashing, and depopulation. Again, not actually part of the United States of America.
Well, we've got one of those, haven't we, Canberra?
Yes, we do.
All of the above institutions function as individual states operating under their own laws. Hence, there is no court of law on earth that could ever prosecute them.
Yeah, in fact, this is interesting. Look at your capital cities or capital territories in your respective countries and see if the laws are any different from the rest of the country. In Australia, that is the case. The ACT, the Australian Capital Territory, has got different laws, federal as well as local, to the rest of the states.
That's true.
That's a fact. And now, the multitude of secret societies in existence today, and there are many, they operate as branches of a mega corporation, and that is owned by the Council of the 13 Families. So it's like a pyramidal structure, and nobody really knows what's going on.
That's true, absolutely true. Even though they've been handsomely rewarded for their work, the members of these secret societies are not members of the elite bloodlines. They don't know who their masters are, and they have no idea what the real agenda is.
Yeah, that's right. Now, we come to the brainwashing.
Ooh.
Another mass, yeah, that's right. We actually had a few shows on this, guys. If you had the chance to listen to it, we also had the good fortune of having Solaris on that as well. Another mass enslavement tool that they're using against us is the so-called educational system. Schools are no longer what they used to be, and children are learning to memorize without thinking and obey without questioning. Creativity is no longer encouraged.
No, that's right. In fact, this established educational system is extremely expensive to keep operational and obsolete in the age of the internet.
Absolutely. Why would you memorize anything?
You don't need to. It's all there. You can Google it.
Correct. It's 100%. And that was my next paragraph. So let's go.
I'm so sorry, Becky.
No, that's exactly right.
But that's how obvious it is. It is that obvious to everybody.
Yeah.
So why are we still paying huge amounts of money for government education or governmental education? Because the world's elite require that our children learn conformity and inside-the-box thinking. We've talked about that.
Remember that term, guys. Now, currencies. Let's talk about currency slaves, shall we? It's us. That's you and me and every poor schlop that's listening to this, hopefully. The financial system has stealthily enslaved our species. And now we are being used as currency slaves. We work from 9 to 5 every day. Well, I don't. I work from 7 to 7 or 7 to midnight. Yeah. So, in boring and depressing environments, not stimulated by anything creative or constructive. We all work in cubicles. I mean, how awful is that?
Yeah, completely. In most cases, the sole motivation for going to work is the next paycheck. And no matter how hard we work, we never seem to have enough money. That's the maintenance of you on your treadmill.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. we're on the hamster wheel, right? Have you ever wondered why mega corporations, reaping billions of dollars in profit every year, pay dozens of millions to the CEOs and as close as possible to the minimum wage to the rest of employees?
This has been carefully designed because a person that is constantly on the edge will never have time for self-education, introspection, and eventually spiritual awakening. You've got no time for that if you're on the hamster wheel.
That's completely true. Now think about that. Now think about all the people that are actually worse off than us, that are starving to death. They have even less time for this. Okay? And isn't this our main purpose on Earth, to become spiritual beings? And by spiritual, we're not talking about religious, but we're talking about completing the reincarnation cycle and actually getting the heck out of here.
Absolutely, because that's the escape, you see.
Yeah.
It's the Groundhog Day. You've got to do everything right.
Yeah.
They don't need to educate people who are capable of critical thinking and have spiritual goals. No, this kind of people are dangerous to the establishment.
Independent thought alarm. Bee, bee, bee.
I love hearing them blink in unison.
You guys have to watch The Simpsons, sorry. They want obedient robots, just intelligent enough to operate the machines and keep the system running, but stupid enough never to ask questions. Now, we're actually seeing that come to be true. And actually, it's going to get worse with the addition of drugs that is now permeating our societies. It's a very, very, very dim picture.
Meki's right. They've actually, our government actually stated that they want people more able to leave school and begin working straight away. So to enable that, they want to change the education system so that people are just robots. They're almost automatons when they come out. Because money is the eye of the devil.
Yep.
That's what drives the whole thing, is that the people who have businesses are pushing back at the government so they can get dumber people just smart enough to do the work.
All of the world's biggest problems have their roots deeply embedded in the financial plane. Wars are profitable, but don't tell me they're not. They are profitable for someone. Someone is paying $1 million per cruise missile, okay? And someone is getting paid for it, I should say.
Yeah.
Diseases are profitable. I mean, in the American health system is a farce. Sorry, it's not a farce. It's a travesty.
Yep.
It is. In Australia, they're trying to do the same thing now. They're trying to privatize healthcare, which means you will pay $100,000 for life-saving operations, $1.5 million for liver transplant, and things like that.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So the way we plunder the planet is highly profitable. Human slavery is profitable. Inhumane working conditions are profitable.
Do you know, Meki and I did a show on slavery, and there's still 13 million slaves in the world today.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
There's still slaves. I mean, what?
Yeah, what? There weren't 13 million slaves at the head of the Roman Empire. Well, there weren't that many people around. I mean, there were, but the number of slaves wasn't that high.
No.
Simply because we've got more people today, that's all.
And one thing we've also mentioned a lot, is our leaders have been corrupted by money, and mankind's collective mission on Earth has been hijacked by money.
Yes, and again,
absolutely true.
That's why we did 6 shows on the financial system, fiat currency, the illusion of banking.
Yep.
So the question then is, why do we need this financial system in the first place, right? Why? Well, the answer is we don't. We don't need it anymore anyway. And this is really where it becomes almost, going to sound like hippie, right? The planet doesn't charge us anything, not a dime, for using the natural resources, And we have to extract the technology to extract them without physically working a day. Not only that, but we are making forays into alternative energy sources, into zero-point energy. There's the quantum field. These advances are being kept at bay. They're not progressing quickly for us, right? Because the problem is that if we surrender, if the elite surrenders the hold they have over us, that's it for them. They're finished. They're done. As soon as we are empowered, they're gone. They're done. There's no more. There's nothing they can do. Okay. Quickly, we can't talk to you about the solution that is proposed here by this particular writer or us even, but we will share that with you next week. But just bear in mind, though, that this is the way we have accepted to live. let's try to do something else. And donate to the station if you can.
Absolutely donate. And next week we have a whole bunch of quotes from Karen Hughes, one of the people that were bringing all this out to light. And what we're going to do is also try and get an interview with her. Thank you so much for listening to show number 155. Next week is our third year on air. Yeah! Enjoy yourselves, guys. Stay alive and keep your eyes open, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.